Hi Nick, how have you been?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me a little bit about how your past week has been.
It's been okay. I've had kind of an issue with my roommate. Um, it's kind of been going on for a while, but like it kind of just seemed like it kind of peaked a little bit last week. They aren't really following COVID, I guess, protocol very well. They're kind of going out in larger groups and going to some parties and whatnot, and I'm not really comfortable with that. And like I said, it's been going on for a little bit now, but it just kind of last week it like really kind of agitated me. I got pretty frustrated with them about it. So yeah, it's about where I am right now.
Okay, so it sounds like your roommate and you kind of have different ideas about how you should be behaving during this pandemic, and that difference has caused some frustration and has been troublesome to you.
Yeah, and like I kind of always knew that like we didn't see exactly eye to eye on everything, but I didn't really think as it COVID kind of hit and it kind of kept on progressing, that specifically COVID, like it was like kind of getting farther apart. Like I thought about it one way and they thought about it another way, and it's kind of frustrating because like I understand kind of where they're coming from with when they're at school. They're kind of, that's kind of like their biggest social part about life, and they're a very social person, which I get that. So I understand that it's hard for them, but at the same time, I feel like they're being slightly selfish with, not only just with me, but like, when they go home, they're kind of bringing all that back with them. So, yeah, it's just kind of frustrating because I talk to them about it. I'm like, well, what do your parents think? Because their parents are a little older, so they're kind of in that kind of range, and they're like, oh, my parents don't really care. It's like, okay, well, are you seeing your grandparents? Are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but I don't really see them that much. And yeah, it kind of makes a conflict, especially with me, where I try to be cautious so that like I can from time to time, see my family and see my grandparents. And there's a part of me that like, well, I stay pretty safe. I follow a lot of things, all the guidelines and whatnot. So, seeing my grandparents, within reason, I feel like, it's okay. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm living with this person who is going out and doing almost the exact opposite of what I'm doing. So at that same time, I'm like kind of, not really as safe as I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds to me like your worries about your roommate's behavior extend beyond just yourself, and you're worried about their family and also yours, so that's very selfless of you. And also you feel like your efforts to be safe are basically canceled out because of the things that they're doing, so I can understand how that's a very frustrating situation for you.
yeah, and like I said, it kind of like, there's a point where like, it was kind of just whatever. And then I kind of thought like, okay, maybe they just, it's like, I get it. It was kind of tough at the beginning and we kind of just wanted to get through it, and we kind of did. But then it kind of like, everything COVID related, didn't quite, we're not back to normal now. And it's like, the way that I viewed it was, we kind of did what was necessary last year, and I followed that really strictly. And then everything kind of like tried to go back, but then we kind of fell into the same thing, as a country as a whole. So then I was like, oh, well, maybe this is actually like a pretty serious thing. And it kind of progressed, and like I feel like I almost kept, I don't want to say kept getting safer, but like I kind of kept like my thoughts of the whole situation kind of kept evolving. And then theirs, it was like once that like first like month of like lockdown was up, it was kind of like, whatever, I'm just going to do whatever I think, I want to do, go out, do this, do that. And then, again, they, they brought it back to me. And I'm, again, my thoughts and everything are constantly evolving, and I'm thinking about how is this gonna, what my actions are gonna affect other people. And I feel like they just kind of don't think that way. They're kind of just narrow-minded and a little bit selfish with that. And like I said, I get it, they like to be social, and their time to be social is up at school. But I feel like that's not necessarily an excuse
Yeah.
to kind of do all this stuff. But yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna have to cut this part because I had something I was gonna say and then I forgot. What was I gonna say? I genuinely don't remember what I was gonna say. And I can't remember anything you just said.
Sorry.
What was I gonna say? My train of thought just evaporated. Hold on. I paused it. So.
Okay. Take your time.
You said. Oh, okay. Right. So it sounds like you have both some level of compassion for your roommate because you understand that this is a difficult time for them because they are social, and the circumstances aren't very conducive to them being their true self. But you also feel that your roommate's being selfish and their actions directly impact you as well. So that is what's leading to the frustration. Have you talked to your roommate about your concerns at all? Like, have you discussed it with them?
Yeah, a little bit, and that's actually, probably another like kind of point of frustration and agitation between our relationship is I feel like every time we do talk about it, it's kind of like one of those situations that nothing really changes, and we almost both kind of just get set in our way more. Like, it's not like discussing it is almost like there's almost no point to it, I feel like, at this point. So yeah, that's a pretty big frustration point. And to be honest, it's like, I'm not saying like it's not my fault. Like, I'm sure I could probably go about it different ways, because when we do talk about it and we do try to discuss it, it's usually when I'm kind of at that like point, like that breaking point of like kind of like just dealing with it, and then it's like it gets too much, and then that's when we discuss it. So when we discuss it on my end, it's more out of frustration and anger instead of more like, how are we gonna, kind of deal with this situation, because they know that, there is, that frustration that we, both aren't.
That disconnect between what you guys think is appropriate in this these global circumstances.
Yeah, and I could probably go about it a lot better because, like I said, usually when we discuss it, it's just because I'm more angry instead of actually like trying to understand them better and then also like trying to figure out how to overcome this issue.
Right. So when you bring it up to your roommate, it's at a point when the tension is so high that it's not a very conducive conversation.
Yeah, and also I feel like they don't want to discuss it necessarily. Like, like I'm always the one that's bringing things up because I guess I would say that I'm the one with the problem with it because, they don't care what I do. If I would be exactly like them, going out, going to parties and whatnot and going to larger social events, or if I'm kind of doing what I'm doing, which is, staying, more by myself and in smaller groups and, making sure that I'm kind of being safe. It doesn't really affect them what I do, but what they do, I feel like kind of affects me.
Right. So you feel like you're the person always bringing up the conflicts, and do you think that that's that your roommate resents that? Is that part of the problem, do you think?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's almost just kind of like a mute point for them. Like it's just whatever to them, and it's not whatever to me.
Right.
So again, for them, I don't even think that they take the time to see it from my point of view either. I feel like, I try to understand them and understand where they're coming from, but I don't necessarily get that back from them. They kind of they don't. When we always have discussions about it, they're not necessarily asking questions about why I feel this way. It's more like, well, this is why I feel this way. It's never why do you feel this way? It's always, this is why I feel this way, and this is why I do these things. And it's just not reciprocating. It's more of a one-way street, I guess.
Right. So when you have these discussions about your concerns about their behavior, you don't feel listened to.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just another, added frustration. Because if we had a better conversation about it and had better discussions about it, where I kind of feel like we, with our discussions about it, I feel like we never progress. Sometimes I feel like we almost just take a step back, with the relationship between us. We just never progress. It's always, we're kind of just stuck. And it's kind of a point where, like, I'm always just like, maybe I should not live with them. Maybe I should try to find, another place to live. And it's like, and that's a whole nother frustration, a whole nother big thing about, because we do like each other, we get along. It's just kind of this point where we really disagree with each other. It's kind of just that progression, because I can always live with if we're moving forward, but we're not. We're kind of just stuck in a place. Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you would be willing to make a compromise. You're not expecting your roommate to quarantine 24/7, but you just wish that they would take your health and your needs for safety to feel safe into consideration. And it doesn't seem like they've done that. And it doesn't seem like when you guys have those conversations that it kind of feels like neither of you are listening to each other, because you said you don't feel listened to, and you also said that you get to a point where you're just so angry and frustrated that it's maybe not the best time to have a constructive conversation about the problem. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, pretty much exactly how it kind of goes and how I feel. Yeah, and, you know, kind of like, I don't expect them to, you know, conform to everything that I feel as though is right. But it's kind of like at that point where I feel like I'm always in a position, you know, when we start discussions, when we start conversations about it, I'm always at a point where I want to make a compromise. I want, you know, us to improve our living situation. I don't want it to be, you know, I don't want to avoid each other. You know, that's, you know, not the relationship that we have, and that's not where I want the relationship to go. But it's at a point where it's like they don't even tell me that they're going to a party anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like I'm figuring out, oh, they were there tonight. You know, it's like, not that I really am surprised or anything, but, you know, it's like, it's kind of that point where it's like, anytime like some sort of like social topic of, you know, like we don't talk about what we do anymore because we always feel like we're going to either get into an argument or we're going to both feel judged about what we're doing.
Yeah. So I can definitely see how this would be a big source of frustration for you, both because of just the conflict you're having with your roommate, and then also your very reasonable feelings about your safety and the safety of others. And I also think that frustration is compounded by these communications issues that you have with your roommate, and I think that communication is something that we could definitely work on together to help improve some of the frustration you're feeling right now.
Awesome.